Hello, and welcome back to my channel, The Life of a Brown Girl. I'm Shayna, aka Shay. So I am back with a new video. You have to forgive me. I know my channel is very new. It's in its infancy. But being a new mom, first time mom, stay at home mom, is very different. And it requires a lot more time than I really thought. I thought I was going to be able to do a whole lot of things. Yeah, no. I get a lot of things done, but not as much as I thought I would. I will definitely be doing a video about my experience as it pertains to being a new mom. And some things that I've learned so far, things that some of my friends who are already moms, who I've learned from them over the years. I am one of my friends that wait a little bit later, start going ahead and producing kids. But I have some great role models in my friends and some of my family members, and definitely some of the ladies that I've met since I've moved to Chicago. So I'll be going over that as well, and talking about some things, answering any questions, and asking some questions myself, and definitely looking forward to any comments, suggestions, or just anything you have to offer. So today I'm going to start my series on PCOS. That is something that affects a lot of women, especially women in the ethnic community. I find that we, in a whole, don't talk about things as it revolves around our bodies as much. And we talk about some of the superficial things like, working out and wanting to have this body and wanting to look like this in this shape and how you look in this, but I'm talking about internally and some things that are really important, and PCOS is one of them. And I'll also be talking about, which is something that is a big effector, or something that is an after effect of PCOS, should I say, which is infertility. Difficulty getting pregnant or not being able to conceive at all. And that is something that I have dealt with. My daughter is definitely a miracle baby. And I will definitely share my story on not necessarily how she was conceived. I think you know how that happened. Your girl is kind of fine. Anyways, but just where, how my journey started, and I wouldn't even call it a journey. I guess I could, but just where I started, where it took us, and how she became to be naturally. So I'll definitely be going over that, but I'm going to have several videos on PCOS. As I mentioned in my introductory video, I am one who, when I go on YouTube, when I'm Googling, when I'm doing any type of research, I want something that's going to get straight to the point. I don't want to have to read through 7 to 8 pages just to get to this much information. I don't want to watch a 25-minute video just to get to 30 seconds or a minute and a half worth of information. So my videos won't be that long at all. And that's why I'll be doing them in spurts so that you can get the information that you need, and they'll be, titled properly. But just to give you a little background history of mine, not a whole lot. But I actually found out that I had PCOS when I was 20. And I am 34 now. I'll be 35 May 31st, so next month. And so you can pretty much say 15 years. I was the girl during high school who thought she was very lucky because unlike my counterparts, if you will, well, not my counterparts, but unlike my classmates, my female classmates, I didn't have to worry about tampons and pads and panty liners and stuff. I didn't have those types of things. They weren't an issue for me because I didn't have a cycle. And at first, when I inquired about it, it was something that was concerning. And this is what at this point led up to, by the time I was 19, me really being concerned. But I just thought I was lucky. And when I inquired about, well, how come I haven't gotten a period yet? Even though I heard just horrible things about it. So I wasn't wanting it, but I was just concerned, like, how come it hasn't happened to me? I was told by a health professional, actually a RN who was at my school, that girls who are really active, I was one who did tennis. I did track, I did cheerleading, and I had a job after school. So I was constantly going all the time, doing something, being active. And that's just the stuff that was on a school level that had nothing to do with what I was doing at home. So I was told that usually girls who are really active in high school will find that they essentially shut their cycles off, or stop them from coming, if you will. And then once I slowed down an activity, whether that was while I was still in high school, or after, if I decided to go to college and slow down, or whenever after I decided to slow down, that I would probably see that my cycle would regulate and start. So at that point, I was like, okay, fine. That was good enough for me. She was a health professional. She was a nurse. She knew what she was talking about, and I never questioned it until after graduation, which was when I was 17. And yet again, there was still no cycle. At this point, I did not go to college directly after high school. I took a good deal of time off. So even then, hanging out with my friends, they're going, to the store, and every month they're talking about cramps and bleeding and day 1 and day 2 and day 3 and heavy and this and light. And I'm like, I thought it was okay. I was like, I'm one of the lucky ones. Until I turned 19, and I'm like, okay, this isn't, something's not right. There should be no reason why I've been out of school for 2 years and I'm not as active. I'm not doing everything. I'm working. I'm doing some workout stuff, but it's just not as consistent as it was in high school, and I still don't have a cycle. So that's when I started really looking into my gynecological health. I wasn't necessarily worried about kids at that point, but, and this is a very big misconception, I'm like, well, if I don't have a period, I can't have kids. If I don't have a cycle, I can't have kids. And at some point that became a concern of mine, and that's kind of what spearheaded me looking into it. After, when I mean several tests, I'm talking, I've had multiple biopsies. I've had 2 HSGs. That is a very long word, and you're gonna have to look it up. It's a painful process. I've had my thyroid tested. I've had more blood drawn than I care to even admit. I've had more than enough. I've had enough for about 2 or 3 people. I've had more pap smears than, it's way too, yeah. I don't, it shouldn't have been that many people down there, but I digress. So I went through a barrage of testing, nevertheless. And, it just, at first they thought I had mild dysplasia, which is the way it was explained to me is that there's kind of four gradual steps or phases, if you will, before you get to certain cancers, as it deals with, the reproductive area, when you're talking about your ovary, your uterus or your ovaries and different things like that. And at first that's what I was told. And of course that's a shock when they sit you down and say, all right, you're at the 3rd step before the 4th phase, you're at the 3rd phase before the 4th one, before we consider it cancer. And I'm like, what? So at 20, you don't want to hear that. And you're scared to hear that. But again, after even more testing and even more seeing more doctors, I mean, I've had about, in my lifetime, I've easily had at 34, and I didn't see my first gynecologist until I seen her when I was 15. So almost 20 years, I've had well over 10 gynecologists. And that's not even including specialists that I've seen. So after all of that, finally got to have one sit down and really look at things. And we discovered that it was PCOS. And some basic symptoms of PCOS, there are a lot of them, and it affects women differently. But some common symptoms that you'll see, common symptoms of PCOS. Now, these are not all of the symptoms. PCOS affects everyone differently, as I mentioned earlier, in many different ways. And there's some women who have regular, it just affects women differently. So you'll definitely have to speak with your gynecologist to really determine whether or not, and there isn't one test that they can give you to tell you whether or not if you have it. But here are some of the more common symptoms that I do see, not only that I know I had, but reading different blogs, looking things up on YouTube, WebMD, talking to my doctor, and also looking at symptoms based off of ethnicity. These are some of the common factors that I saw. That includes irregular and absence of your menstrual cycle or your period, acne, dandruff, or oily skin. For me, I really don't have acne. I have a couple of spots where I was younger and I thought I, didn't take care of my skin as much as I should have, but acne really didn't affect me in that way. Dandruff and oily skin, I definitely have dandruff, but I've gotten it under control. Shout out to some great beauticians that I've had in Kansas City as well as Chicago, who have helped me learn more about my hair and how to handle that. Oily skin, definitely. I mean, at any given time previously, now that I've paid attention to it, not so much, but I could do this and my hands look like I just ate like church's chicken or something. It would be ridiculous. I could change the oil on your car, put some oil on your door, deep fry some tenders. I mean, it was ridiculous. Thinning hair or male pattern baldness. I definitely see that a lot with women with PCOS. And sometimes it can be a lot to deal with. So again, talking to your health care professional about it. You may even need to involve a dermatologist. Weight gain or obesity, especially in the midsection. Women with PCOS, we have a harder time losing weight. And another thing that I've noticed is that PCOS also affects women who are on the opposite side of that spectrum, if you will, and they are smaller women. They're women, a lot of people think that only healthier women or plus size women have PCOS. No, that's not true. There are women who are skinny or who are underweight, if you will, that have it as well. So definitely pay attention to that as well. And hirsutism. Hirsutism? Yeah. That is basically unwanted hair growth on your face, your back, or your chest. That is usually one of the more, that one and the absence or irregularity of your monthly cycle. Those two are usually the biggest factors. I mean, no woman wants to walk around here looking like Rick Ross, Nobody wants that. So when you start to notice that, some women just write it off, and it is in some women's genes, in their family, that some women are just kind of hairy. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Go ahead, girl. I know a couple people with some full beards and still got men or women, So anyways, but yeah, so those are some of the common symptoms. There are way more symptoms than that. Now I should have put this disclaimer in the beginning. I am not a medical professional. I'm not a gynecologist. I am not a reproductive endocrinologist. I'm not a reproductive specialist by any means. I am not certified as a holistic doctor or anything in the medical profession. Everything that I'm telling you is based off of my personal experience, as well as information that I have gotten from websites, clinical websites like the Mayo Clinic and different medical journals that I've read. When something like this affects you, and we've all done it in one way or another, you find yourself doing your own research, trying to figure out, what works for you, what you can do, especially if you've been told that, it's going to affect you in one way and you don't like that result, or you don't like that diagnosis or prognosis, and you feel like there's something else that you can do. So I know I said I wasn't going to make this a long video, but this is just an introductory. I am going to have several more where I tell you about things that I did as well as, you know, if they worked for me, if they did not. Also going a little bit more in depth about my story. I loathe reading or viewing something and they just tell you about what they did and poof, magically, no. And just being honest about it. PCOS is not something, there is no cure for it. Although I will say a lot of people in the holistic community, and a lot of things that I've read, they talk about making certain changes where there can be a reversal of a lot of those symptoms that affect you, especially if you're looking to conceive and start a family, or if you are bothered in a way like cyst, endometriosis, those things can be very painful. I did have a little bit of that. Not as, it wasn't as prevalent as it is for a lot of women who have to take medicine for it, who have to call off work, just a lot of different things. So I definitely hope you continue to tune in. I am going to be talking about a lot of different topics, as I said in my introductory video. I'm actually going to have my husband on, and we are going to talk about how we met. When people find out how we met in our story, they kind of give us the, oh, I can't lie, it was kind of cute. Yeah. Also, just a lot of different things, topics that I've experienced personally. And a lot of these will be things that I've experienced in one way or another, whether I've dealt with them personally. I've had a close friend or family member that's dealt with it, and I was there through that process, through that situation, or whatever have you. So really, really, really excited. Definitely subscribe. If you have any questions, any concerns, now I sound like when I worked at the bank. If you have any questions, any comments, definitely leave them below. If you have any suggestions, I'm definitely new to the YouTube community. So if you have any suggestions about how I can improve my video or things you want to talk about or comments that you have, post them and let me know. Again, don't be rude, please. Positive vibes only. So until next time, I can't wait to make another video and post it and talk and